I remember exactly how the sunlight angled through the blinds that afternoon. A soft, late summer glow that should have felt warm and comforting. We were supposed to be in a good place. After years of steady dating, plenty of heart to heart conversations, and careful planning, we decided to try for a baby. It felt like the next step in a life we were building together, something pure and hopeful. We were both in our early 30s, financially stable, living in a decent apartment not too far from family and friends. At least that's how I saw it. I thought we were a team. I certainly didn't expect to find Penny Royal and Mugwort when I opened that drawer. I'd gone in looking for something mundane, an old sweatshirt maybe, or one of her scarves she liked to keep in the dresser instead of the closet. My fingers brushed against a plastic bag tucked beneath a folded t-shirt, and I pulled it out, curious. Inside the bag there were dried leaves and stems, labeled in her cramped handwriting. Penny Royal, Mugwort. I recognized the names, vaguely. Mugwort I associated with old herbal remedies, maybe teas for insomnia or cramps. Penny Royal, however, triggered something else in my memory, a whispered warning I'd once read online. Penny Royal could be used to induce miscarriage, and it was known to be toxic. Confusion washed over me. We were pregnant, about 9 weeks along, and she'd been the one who seemed so excited. Over dinner, she would talk about the future, decorating a nursery, picking names that had some meaning to both of us. She'd send me links to baby clothing sales or cute onesies printed with silly slogans. There was no sign of hesitation or regret that I could detect. So why would she have these herbs hidden away? When she came home that evening, I tried to be calm. I stood in the bedroom holding the bag, waiting for her footsteps in the hall. She walked in, noticed the look on my face, and tilted her head. I showed her what I'd found and asked, "What's this?" Instantly, her posture changed. Tense shoulders, arms crossing defensively. She claimed ignorant, said she didn't know how it got there. But we live together, just the two of us. No one else comes rummaging in our drawers. I pressed lightly at first, telling her I was worried, asking if she was feeling okay. That's when her defensiveness spiked. She said I was accusing her of something. She talked in circles as if hoping I'd drop the subject. But I wouldn't. Not with Penny Royal. Eventually her voice cracked and tears welled in her eyes. She confessed, "I used it to cause a miscarriage." Time seemed to slow. I heard her words, but they felt unreal. "Wait," I said, choking on confusion. "You wanted this baby as much as I did. Why would you—" She cut me off, crying harder, offering no immediate explanation. She just repeated that she'd done it, and now the pregnancy was gone. A hollow numbness settled in my chest. I should have shouted, but I didn't. I just asked quietly, "Why? If you didn't want to have it after all, why not tell me?" We live 5 minutes from a Planned Parenthood. You know they provide safe, legal abortions. We could have talked about it. She refused to answer, shaking her head and sobbing. "Let's go to the hospital," I pleaded. "Penny Royal is toxic, and I worried for her health as much as I mourned the loss of our child." She refused that too. Again and again. Her voice was cracked and uneven, as if she was terrified of someone finding out what she'd done. In the following days, she acted as though nothing serious had happened, except that she was telling friends and family she'd had a miscarriage. She accepted their condolences, looked sad for them, and let them comfort her. I watched this with a growing sense of unease. She was playing a role, presenting herself as a victim of fate. Meanwhile, I was left reeling, trying to understand what this all meant. Was she experiencing some sort of mental health crisis? Did she panic at the prospect of motherhood? I tried talking to her again and again. Each attempt ended in her shutting down the conversation or walking away. The tension was thick. I began to suspect something darker, that she'd done this for attention or sympathy. I hated myself for thinking that. It felt cruel, unfair. But what else fit the facts? One evening, after I couldn't sleep for hours, I confronted her again. I told her that we needed to have a real conversation. If she couldn't explain, if we couldn't talk this through, I couldn't see a way forward for us. It was a desperate plea. I still loved her, still wanted to understand, but I was drowning in confusion and pain. My ultimatum, harsh as it felt, broke something inside her. She confessed the truth in a trembling voice. She'd never felt supported or loved enough by her family. She'd always felt overshadowed, dismissed, undervalued. She believed that by claiming to have a miscarriage, her family would rally around her, finally give her the attention and care she longed for. The pregnancy started real enough, we planned it, but at some point she decided to abort it herself, secretly, in a way that looked like a tragic accident. Not just a medical abortion with a cover story, but an actual physically induced miscarriage so no one could question its authenticity. My mind reeled. I asked why risk her own health? Why not just lie about a miscarriage without physically causing one? Her response gutted me. She wanted the experience of a real miscarriage. She wanted the internal suffering, the pain, and the ordeal that would make her story undeniable to those who might doubt her. She admitted this so matter-of-factly as if it was logical once I understood her point of view. I sat there, numb. The baby we had planned for, the life we'd hoped to nurture, was snuffed out for a twisted form of emotional validation. I asked if there was any chance the baby wasn't mine, some outside factor that made her desperate. She swore the baby was mine. So this wasn't about infidelity, it was about her internal struggles, her desperate need for sympathy. I demanded she get therapy. She needed professional help. There was no doubt. I offered to pay for it entirely, no matter the cost. At first, faced with my intensity, she agreed half-heartedly. I also insisted we see a doctor to ensure no lasting harm was done by the pennyroyal. Eventually, fear of organ damage led her to agree. At the hospital, the test showed she was physically unharmed, by some miracle. The doctors knew only that she'd ingested something harmful. We didn't go into details. I watched her sitting on that sterile exam table, looking small and frightened, and I felt a pang of pity. She was so lost. For a brief moment, I clung to hope. Maybe therapy would help. Maybe this nightmare could be understood if not undone. But days passed after the hospital visit, and she changed her tune. Suddenly, she refused therapy, saying she'd never do it again anyway, so what was the big deal? She acted as if I should drop the subject. She even posted more about the miscarriage on Facebook, basking in the kind words of friends and relatives who believed she'd lost a child through no fault of her own. I confronted her again, furious and hurt. She remained blasé, as if I was overreacting. Overreacting to losing a child we planned. Overreacting to her risking her health and lying to everyone. Overreacting to her wanton manipulation of people's sympathy. The final blow was her saying it wasn't that big of a deal. That's when I realized I couldn't stay. Love has limits, and mine had been crossed too many times. I told her that unless she agreed to therapy, I was done. She begged and pleaded. When I mentioned possibly telling her parents, she dropped to her knees, literally begging me not to say anything. I could see fear in her eyes, not fear for her mental health, but fear of losing the story she'd constructed, fear of her carefully crafted victimhood unraveling. She tried bizarre tactics, wearing my clothes and then stripping them off, clinging to me for a final hug, crying dramatically. None of it felt genuine. It was all part of a performance. Or maybe it was genuine in its own twisted way. A reflection of her fragile mental state, her inability to cope with reality except through these desperate acts. Eventually, she left. I said she could stay or go to her parents, but I couldn't remain her partner. The look on her face when she realized I meant it was haunting. She stumbled out with a suitcase, sobbing. A part of me wanted to comfort her, to say something kind. But what do you say to someone who just admitted to ending your pregnancy for attention? After she left, I sat on the couch, phone in my hand, staring into space for what felt like hours. I felt like I was watching my life from outside my body. Everything was shattered. The trust, the future we had imagined, it all lay in pieces. I tried to sleep that night and couldn't. My mind drifted to the baby that never would be. I thought of the early conversations we'd had about starting a family. She'd been so excited, or at least she seemed to be. We talked about baby names, how we'd decorate the nursery, even joked about whether we wanted a boy or girl first. Was it all a lie, or did something snap inside her halfway through? A few days later, her mother called. Her daughter had tried to harm herself. She was now in the hospital on a psychiatric hold. Her mother asked if I knew anything about what had happened recently, and I hesitated before speaking. In the end, I told the truth. I had messages, I had photos of the herbs, I had her own confessions. I recounted the entire horrifying saga. Her parents were stunned, but they didn't blame me. They thanked me, said they would inform the doctors. So now she's in psychiatric care and I'm alone with my thoughts. I can't help wondering what could have led her to such extremes. Was it a personality disorder? Untreated depression? Deep-seated trauma? I think back to small hints over the years, her envy of others' close families, her resentment at not getting enough praise or attention at birthdays or holidays. I remember how she'd sometimes seem disappointed when family gatherings ended quickly, or how she'd sulk if no one complimented a new hairstyle. Maybe I overlooked these signs, wrote them off as insecurity. I never imagined they'd escalate to this level. I also wonder about my own role in all this. Should I have noticed something sooner? Could I have prevented it by encouraging therapy years ago? But people hide their pain in subtle ways. Love can blind us to red flags. I recall times I thought she was just shy or private, when maybe she was stewing in feelings of neglect and building up a desperate plan. My life now feels like it's been struck by lightning. Everything is illuminated starkly and it's all damaged. The baby's gone, the relationship is destroyed, and I'm left rebuilding my sense of normalcy. I've considered therapy for myself because I'm not sure how to process this level of betrayal and trauma alone. I wake up in the mornings expecting to feel some anger, some bitterness, but mostly I'm just deeply sad. Sad for what could have been, sad for her mental state, sad for the child that never got a chance. I've had to explain the breakup to a few friends who knew we were expecting. I've given them a sanitized version. We had some major issues and decided to separate. I can't bring myself to share the full story. It's too bizarre, too painful. Some friends assume I'm grieving a natural miscarriage. They tell me they're sorry for my loss. I just nod, unable to form the words to correct them. Letting them think it was a tragic twist of fate is easier than explaining the truth. That the woman I loved orchestrated her own miscarriage for attention. I've blocked her on social media to avoid seeing more posts about her miscarriage. I know she may continue this charade with people who don't know better. Part of me feels guilty not exposing her lies publicly, but what good would it do? She's mentally unstable, and now her parents know, and the hospital knows. Hopefully professionals will intervene. Hopefully she'll get the help she needs now that she's hospitalized. Maybe once she's in a stable mental place, she can confront the harm she caused. I've thought a lot about forgiveness. Right now, I can't forgive her. It's too fresh, too raw. Maybe years down the line, with time and distance, I can find some measure of understanding. But now, I need boundaries. I need to ensure I'm safe emotionally and that I don't get drawn into another manipulative spiral. I've also considered the future. Will I ever dare to try for a family again with someone else? The thought terrifies me. The experience I just went through shattered my naive belief that we were on the same page, that a planned pregnancy guaranteed mutual excitement and love. Now I know people can harbor hidden agendas and deep emotional wounds that drive them to cruelty. Yet part of healing might be allowing myself to believe again. Believe that I can meet someone stable, honest, and caring. Believe that not everyone will resort to such desperate measures for attention. I have to hold on to that hope, or I'll become bitter and closed off forever. In quiet moments, I find myself talking aloud to the baby that never was, apologizing for what happened, for not protecting them. It's irrational, I know. The embryo was small and not viable outside the womb, but I feel a responsibility. We conceived with love and hope, and I failed to ensure a safe path forward. My logical mind knows I'm not to blame, yet grief and guilt can ignore logic. I also replay the conversation where she confessed her motives. Her words swirl in my head. I never felt supported enough by my family. I wanted them to feel sorry for me. It's so heartbreaking and twisted. She took something as sacred as creating life and turned it into a tool for pity. She could have asked for emotional support directly or sought therapy for her childhood scars. Instead, she orchestrated a drama that cost a life and nearly cost her own health. How desperate must someone be to do that? The hospital confirmed she took about a cup of pennyroyal infusion daily, plus vitamin C, turmeric, parsley, any old wives' tale remedy she could find. The recklessness of it all. She risked liver and kidney damage. It's a miracle she's physically unscathed. Mentally, though, she clearly needs more help than I can give. I told her parents everything when they called, not out of spite, but because I believe they need to know the full picture to help her. They reacted with shock and sorrow, not denial. They thanked me for my honesty. Now I hope they follow through and ensure she stays in therapy and under psychiatric care, that they understand the severity of what happened, not just chalk it up to stress or a bad decision. Since she's in the hospital on a hold, I assume doctors and therapists are evaluating her. Maybe they'll diagnose depression, personality disorder, or something else. Maybe medication and therapy will help her confront her insecurities and find healthier coping mechanisms. I want to believe there's a path for her to heal and become stable, but I know that journey isn't mine to walk with her anymore. I've changed the locks on my door not because I think she'll try to break in, but because I need the symbolic gesture of closing that chapter. If she comes out of the hospital and tries to contact me, I'll have to stand firm in my boundaries. She lost my trust so completely that I can't imagine rebuilding it. Love is built on trust, honesty, mutual care. She shattered those pillars in a way that's beyond repair. It's been only a short time since she left, but it feels like ages. My world is quieter now, emptier. Sometimes I just sit in silence, letting the waves of confusion and sadness wash over me. I'm trying not to drown in it. I remind myself that I survived this ordeal. I did the right things, encouraged medical care, offered therapy, refused to cover up her lies, protected my own mental health by ending a relationship that became toxic and harmful. I'm learning that loving someone doesn't mean tolerating every behavior. Sometimes love means stepping away to preserve your sanity. Sometimes it means acknowledging that no matter how much you care, you can't fix what's broken in another person's soul. That's a hard lesson. In the months to come, I may find solace in talking to a professional myself. I may lean on friends more, even though I can't tell them the whole story. I'll say the relationship ended under very difficult circumstances, that I'm grieving what I thought we had. If pressed, I might say something vague about serious personal issues on her part. The details are too personal, too painful, and too hard for most people to comprehend. Who would believe a story like this if they hadn't lived it? At night, I sometimes dream of a different reality, one where she told me she was scared or uncertain about having a baby, and we talked it through calmly. One where we decided together what path to take. One where no one resorted to lies, poison, and theatrics for attention. In those dreams, we're just a couple facing a tough decision, holding hands, maybe even choosing not to have a baby yet, but doing so honestly, lovingly. Then I wake up, and the real world rushes back in. I know I'll heal eventually. Humans are resilient creatures. We adapt, we move forward, we carry scars, but also learn from them. This experience will shape me, but I hope it won't define me. I want to believe that I can still have a future with genuine love, maybe even children, if life leads me there again with someone trustworthy and kind. For now, I focus on small steps, eating well, exercising, going back to work, doing things I enjoy, trying not to check her social media or worry about what she's telling people. It's not my responsibility anymore. Her parents and doctors are involved, and I can let go. This is where I stand, with a heavy heart but a firm resolve. I've done what I can, revealed the truth, ensured she got medical attention, refused to enable her illusions. The rest is up to fate, her healthcare professionals, and her willingness to seek treatment. In time, maybe I'll find peace. Maybe I'll look back and see this as a tragic, harrowing chapter that taught me about mental health, boundaries, and the limits of love. Maybe I'll honor the memory of that lost pregnancy by living authentically, never twisting reality for attention, never taking trust and honesty for granted. For now, I accept my grief, my shock, and my uncertainty. I accept that I may never fully understand why she did what she did, and I accept that sometimes walking away is the most loving thing you can do for yourself.